Greetings and welcome back to Room 303 in our Chats with Emily, as we are calling our readings through the poetry of Emily Dickinson in the Johnson edition. We turn now to poem 588, I Cried at Pity, Not at Pain. Now, this is an amazing poem to demonstrate Emily's fierceness. It was published in Poems in 1896, stanzas 5 and 6. It is another theodicy, that is to say, it is another poem trying to come to terms with pain and suffering. Our assumptions are that you've been following our stuff at learnstrong.net. Down that left-hand side, Chats with Emily's our playlist. I'm hopeful that you've already worked through our set of introductory comments where we talked about our big five. What does each of these poems have to say about 1, epistemology, what you can know; 2, ontology and who you are; 3, psychology, the study of the individual mind; 4, sociology, the study of the group mind; and then there's finally that question of theodicy. Why must there be pain and suffering in the world, and how do you account for it? I'm also hopeful that you've already read our preceding 587 poems. We just finished with 587, Empty My Heart of Thee. And if you have, you can place this poem within the context of some other kinds of poems. Remember what Emily will have said at poem 241. I mean, let's just remind ourselves of this one, just as we kind of set up the study here. I like a look of agony, because I know it's true. Men do not sham convulsion, nor simulate a throe. The eyes glaze once, and that is death, impossible to feign. The beads upon the forehead, by homely anguish stung, will play this game. Now, one scholar's called this Emily's warning against pity. We are in many ways back to childhood. She'll even use the phrase, poor child. And it's another comparison poem, pain and pity. She says it this way. I cried at pity, not at pain. I heard a woman say, poor child, and something in her voice convicted me of mine. So long I fainted to myself, it seemed the common way in health and laughter, curious things to look at like a toy, to sometimes hear rich people buy and see the parcel rolled and carried, I suppose, to heaven for children made of gold, but not to touch or wish for or think of with a sigh. And so had been to me, had God willed differently. I wish I knew that woman's name, so when she comes this way to hold my life and hold my ears for fear I hear her say, she's sorry I am dead. Again, just when the grave and I had sobbed ourselves almost to sleep, our only lullaby. Now, of course, she's channeling Dante, and more particularly from the Divine Commedia, Dante's journey through Inferno, where he has these conversations with people who are, quote-unquote, already dead. We think of so many of them. We've given full lectures at learnstrong.net on Dante's Divine Commedia. Notice, she says, this is what bothered me. Not pain, but the pity that can be associated with the pain when someone starts to feel sorry for me or for others. Pity will take us back to poem 532, Perhaps He Pitied Me. Notice the use of the dashes here as well. I cried at pity, dash, not at pain. I heard a woman say. Now, this idea of hearing, right? It's like offhanded. And then noticing quotation marks, poor child. Now, again, this use of the word child in 71 of her poems, she references child or children or childlike. And something in her voice convicted me of mine. Now, I think convicted is a powerful word here. There's a sense of the assurance of, now I know why I'm really upset. So long, she says, I fainted. To myself it seemed the common way. And notice all the things that you lose when you get ill and you are depressed. Health and laughter and curious things. And you look at them the way you do a toy. In other words, they get played with for a while, and then you got to set them down. To sometimes hear, we're back to hearing again from the second line. Quote, unquote, rich people buy and see the parcel rolled and carried, and then there's the I supposed to heaven. You'll remember I supposed from 515 in our study. For children made of gold, so notice we go from poor child to children, but not to touch or wish for or think of with a sigh. the passage of children. And Emily, guys, you got to remember, in Emily's time, children die regularly. It's a natural thing, because all of the pharmaceuticals that you guys, of course, were raised with that keep you from lots and lots of illnesses, they don't exist during Emily's time. So, for example, a little cold or pneumonia can end a child's life very quickly, and then everything's gone. And no more touching, no more wishing, no more thinking of. It's all gone with a sigh. And so-and-so had been to me, had God willed differently. Emily accepting the potentiality that the illnesses that she had in her life could have culminated with her death, which of course to us as we read these amazing poems are like, well, we're really grateful that a germ didn't knock her out early, because we would not have this. I think the point too is that children dying young is such a tragedy, poor child, from the earlier in the poem, because there's so much that could have been accomplished that we'll never know, was accomplished or not. I wish I knew that woman's name. Now, we assume she's referencing the woman of earlier in the poem that she heard say, poor child. So, when she comes this way, in other words, what way? Well, when Emily herself is ready to go to the van. As we have said, they taught you this when you were a child at the park. It's time to go to the van. I don't want to go to the van. No, honey, you can't swing forever at the park. Everybody's got to go to the van. I wish I knew that woman's name, so when she comes this way, to hold my life and hold my ears. For fear, I hear her say, she's sorry I am dead. Again, notice the use of the dashes with the word again. Just when the grave and I had sobbed ourselves almost to sleep, our only lullaby. In other words, once I'm dead and in the grave or soon to be there, she says, I don't need anybody's pity. I'm not interested in the pity. The thing that I cry for is the pity, not for the pain. At 2a, I think the point here is that she is making the argument that for her, you got to live a fierce life and not be pity and not pity yourself. She doesn't like the idea of that. At 2b, I love the verbs of this poem. I love the tone. It is a fierce tone. At least that's how we are reading it. At 3a, I mentioned Dante, and of course Virgil's constant reminder to Dante, I got no interest in your suffering and in your pain. I'm not pitying you. And of course by Canto 24, what does he say to his the one he's responsible for, his co-voyager, up on your feet. This is no time to tire. The man who lies asleep will never wake in fame, and his desire drift past him like ripples on a stream. Finally, at 3b, what was a time when you yourself hated the pity that was shown to you? You yourself maybe had that fierceness of Emily. Thank you.